the things and
Yeah.
whatever. And like quickly kudos everybody on his list. And I'm like, dude, you gotta like chill out a little bit. You can't be like the first kudo guy. And you know, you just gotta like,
Go.
right? Like,
Here we go.
just
Kudos, Coach Tara.
Just
I
relax.
like this.
Give it an hour.
Yeah.
Right? Just like let it be for a second.
Turn off those notifications, baby.
Yeah, I'm like, don't set that up for everybody.
This is
Just
so good.
Let that be. But
Welcome to Brainstoke. I'm Tom Telford with Preston Niederhauser. We are in studio today, and the day is brought to you by Bolt, Shave, Levo. Who else is it brought to you by? Are you wearing Seven Brothers?
Representing Seven Brothers today. Yes.
I like it. Seven Brothers. We're so stoked to have Tara Warren with us, who is an amazing runner and human advocate for ALS. Like, there's a lot of things we could define you by, but Preston, do you have a kickoff question? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I do. Tara, at any given moment, how many toenails might you be missing?
oh my gosh. Okay, so we'll get to that. But thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. Like, it's fun to be here and be on this platform and share today. So
Yeah.
here we go, jumping right in.
Yeah, we are.
We will not zoom in on the piggies today. But they are healed.
Okay.
About 2.5 weeks out from finishing up with this project I've been working on. But yeah, I think we're down to, I think I have one
One remaining or
one.
one missing?
one left.
Oh, man.
Right. So
Impressive. 1 out of 10.
yeah, it's been a thing.
A just cause, though, to lose the 9 out of 10. So introduce yourself. How would you, we meet in an elevator. How do you introduce yourself and what you're doing, your craft? Give us some background.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Tara. I live over the mountains in Ogden and live there with my family, my husband, Bryce. I think you guys are familiar with Bryce.
Yep.
And also my kiddos. I have a 16-year-old Eric and 13-year-old James and a 24-year-old stepson, Christian, who's in Logan. And we are just living the dream in the mountain town. I run a lot. I coach. I drive my kids around a lot. And yeah, just a normal day-to-day mom who has gotten a little bit in deep with running.
Normal.
Yeah.
Unbelievable description, Tara. What do you coach?
So I'm a run coach.
Yeah.
So I have clients that do a little everything: road, marathon, trail, ultra. Yeah, just maybe getting back into it after time off or an injury or a pregnancy. So run the gamut of various.
You usually coaching women, or do you coach men and women? You do both?
Yeah, both.
Okay. Yeah.
The reason that Tara is here today is because you're less than normal, Not less. I mean, that description is kind of interesting, but you're doing incredible things. You just finished 4 100-mile races, which I want you to describe, kind of give some background of what that is, but you're legit. This is a legit thing. And so to say that, you dabble in running or that kind of subtle description is, we need to double click on it because you're doing cool stuff. So take us there. What are these amazing things that you're chasing and doing?
Yeah, so I just finished the Rocky Mountain Slam. I just completed that a couple weeks ago, and that entailed of me doing 400-mile races from June until September, and that consisted of the Bighorn 100 in Sheridan, Wyoming. That was in June, and 100-miler, which is about around 20K of elevation gain in the most beautiful place on earth. Like, I dream about this place when I have running dreams at night, because I do. I don't know if that's weird or not. That's where I am, and it's a hidden gem. I love it out there. And then my dream race was finishing Hard Rock 100 in July out in Silverton, which is a zinger. That's, again, a 100-miler, and it has around 34,000 feet of gain, high above elevation.
And you're at elevation there. So that one's
That's
a
35.
that one's a battle, right?
That's a booger. And so that was that was kind of like the big focus, and that's a lottery to get into that one. So I've been trying for 7, 8 years or so to get into that. COVID year, there's a year it was canceled because it was flooded, and so you have to do certain qualifiers to be able to get into the lottery. So there's a lot of strategy in building up to get into that, which we can touch on later, I guess. But and then from there was about a 6-week break, and then I jumped into the Wasatch 100, which I'm sure you all have heard of, and that goes right here in our neighborhood, so to speak, from Kaysville to Midway. And I've never done that one before for a lot of reasons, but mainly because my heart is with the Bear 100, which is 3 weeks after that. And so both the Wasatch and the Bear are around 20,000 feet of climbing as well. Again, 100 milers. And so the Wasatch goes from southbound to Midway, and then you're up in Logan for the Bear 100. That was 3 weeks later. And you run from Logan Canyon, Dry Canyon, all the way to Bear Lake to St. Charles, basically Fish Haven, St. Charles area. And that's I've done that race. I think this was my 7th or 8th start. And I just love it. I keep going back there. It's just community, leaves, mountains, great access for crew, all the things. So,
is this the first year you've done them 3 weeks apart? Like,
yes.
Is that unheard of? Maybe it kind of sounds like that's too close.
For me, that was probably one of the biggest challenges. It was thinking about what that would be like mentally and physically. Already having done 2, then doing Wasatch. So what would that look like? Where would I be physically? Would I be wrecked?
Yeah.
How would that be mentally? Could I actually fathom doing that again? Could I actually find my gear and pack for that again? So there were a lot of questions. I've historically done 200 or 300 milers each year for probably the last 9 or so years.
Okay.
But maybe we're talking like one in February, one in, June. So not all kind of crunched in together like that.
Yeah.
And some pretty challenging efforts through the years, which I love. I love the challenging courses with a lot of technicality and cool places. So wasn't afraid of that part, but I didn't know if
How
I
the
would
body
really
would
wreck
react.
myself. Yeah.
And
I made it.
yeah, missing some
my
toenails.
toes, yeah,
but
back to the toes. But no, I made it, and it's amazing to say that, because starting out, there were some big moments where I didn't know if putting a goal out there, you call your shot beforehand, if that was something that you could actually do, and then just I don't know if it wasn't a negative pressure, but it was a thing to finish. Like I wanted to finish, and then you put these goals out here, and you want to finish for those reasons too.
What are we talking timeline? How many hours are we talking on a typical race? Because for our listener, maybe wrap their heads around this. And my second follow up to that is, I've got to think that you go through some dark places during every event, because we've done some endurance and events, and I know I experienced a multitude of emotions through a 10-hour bike ride, right? So I anticipate you're dealing with a lot of that.
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just thinking about now makes me go to that place.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that to you.
No, yeah. Like, just to get back to your first question, kind of, you said to break it down a little bit more as far as.
Yeah, just to give us an idea maybe how long
and,
actually it is hours wise.
So this seems silly, but with any race, like, the faster you go, the better, you'll finish, like, just to be done, right? So you want to go faster, and it is a race. So I'm super competitive. So I like to be competitive and feel like I'm kind of in the mix and doing the thing. But the first race at Bighorn in Wyoming this year was tricky. I think for all the reasons I mentioned, just I was a little overwhelmed. I had done that race before. I think I've started that 6 times, and I finished it already 4 times or so. 4, I don't know. And so I knew what was going to be asked of me. Like, I knew that. And like I said, I love it so much. I can picture all the places. And I got pretty overwhelmed, and that one took me 34 hours to complete. By far the longest I'd ever taken to finish that. Usually I'm like a 26 to 29 hour type 100-mile finisher.
Yeah.
And which isn't like winning, but it's not totally not winning. Like it's pretty good. You're
Pretty dang
pretty in there.
respectable. Yeah.
Pretty good. And so I was really bummed, and my poor pacers who were out there with me had to deal with that. And I love them. Shout out to Kim and Sarah. Thank you. But just, you start doing the math and you start thinking about, oh gosh, can I do this effort I'm doing now over this amount of time? And your brain is all messed up too. And you're thinking, okay, if I'm doing a 20-minute pace for, 3 miles an hour, oh no, like the math isn't working out.
Yeah.
Like I won't be able to. So you start thinking about that with 7-8 hours left. And it was just a real hard race for some reason, which I learned more later in the season. I was taking in too much sodium, which we can get to that later in the talk if you want. But so, it is another learning process. And I think that's what keeps me going through all these different things. It's staying teachable and curious. Like you want to keep being curious about, even though you've done some of these sometimes, but the curiosity doesn't wane. And you want to see, well, what will my body do? Or what will happen if I slog it out for 20-minute miles for 8 hours? What will that look like? And so for that particular one, it was 20 or 34 hours with hard rock. Again, a really hard effort. And I wasn't super satisfied with my result, even though I was extremely satisfied with being there and the experience. I'd love to go back and give it another shot, hopefully one day. And that was 45 hours. And that's not sleeping. I took some trail naps, which that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That your body can just do that. And then I figured out some nutrition things, and Wasatch was 31 hours, which should have been faster, but I was good with that. And then Bear was 29 hours. So it's always a learning process. These races are crazy and unpredictable, and you're in it sometimes, and all of a sudden 3 hours just disappear, and you don't really even know what happened in there.
Yeah.
And you just are like, okay, well, now we've got to kick it in, whatever that means, whatever I have left.
Yeah.
So
It's pretty remarkable.
In other words, this is
just watching your
in
face,
other
you're
words,
just like,
this is an insane.
whoa.
I love it. There's so much here that I want to dive into, and you use the word curiosity. So I want to go back, like if you don't mind, like whether you're a teen or when did you get curious? Like, can I do 100 miles on my own feet? Like, how did that all begin?
So, I mean, I've always loved sports. I've done sports my whole life. I was a swimmer for years and years and years. I'm from South Carolina, and so the swimming was our thing.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. I coached swimming at a competitive level when I was really young. I was really into the whole physiology and body reactions and all of that from teenage years. Loved it. I played basketball, though. That was my passion, and I wanted to be a pro basketball player before there was even like the WNBA. Like I loved it, and came out west to pursue that, and that did not happen. I was not tall enough, which is fine. So that said, I've always dabbled in running just to kind of stay in shape, or coaches punishing you when you run, that whole experience. And then in college, I started just running just to kind of break up the monotony or feel a little bit fit and not sluggish.
Yeah.
And kind of got into it that way. Had roommates that did different 5K, half marathons, and was like, okay. And so I would do that, but I was never like super passionate about it. It was kind of like skiing for me. Don't tell Bryce. Like I never really got it. So I would go and I learned how to ski, but it was never like, oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
But so running was like that for me. And then, I kept running. Like I had a career before having kids, and I would run just to support staying active as I was traveling around doing work, like treadmills, hotel treadmills, etc. I remember running around Rawlings. Where's Rawlings at? In Wyoming, just in between meetings. You just run to kind of stay focused or fit. And then after having my second kid, by then I was definitely living in Ogden for a long time, and Bryce was super into trail running. There's an amazing trail community there, and women that I would see out and about, and I would admire from afar and think, oh my gosh, they're so brave. How do they not worry about getting taken or eaten or getting lost?
Yeah.
Right. Those are the three main things. And that's not for me. Because, moving to Ogden from Salt Lake, that's a scary thing. And so I just,
Heathens.
like it's like the end of the world.
Yeah.
And so I never really saw myself doing that until my treadmill broke and actually caught on fire. We have a 100-year-old house on the East Bench, and it's not all wired great. And, who knew? And so the motherboard fried, started smoking. And I was like, well, this is it. My life is over. What am I going to do? I have to run outside in Ogden. And no, it's not that bad. And so that was really how I got into it. So Bryce was already racing and doing a lot of running at that point. And I picked a small little smidgen of trail that I had to run on the road to get to, which was about, I don't know, it was probably less than 5 miles. Just that little Birdsong connector to
Love
Rainbow.
it.
We
And
love
I
the
could
place.
love the Birdsong.
Yeah.
And I could run from my house on Birdsong every morning before the kids woke up. And I just thought, this is amazing. What is this? And I would, it's that hill. You run down that hill and you get into the canyon. The wind's like blowing your hair. The sun's rising up over the fake waterfall. And you're like, this is heaven. Like, what is this? I'm like, I'm a trail runner. And if you were to go out, and Strava started to become a thing then too, like 2013-ish. And so I got on Strava, and you could probably go back on my Strava, and I would do that route for a year and a half plus. But that's where the question came into, like, with the curiosity. So you're like, I'm a trail runner, and you're like, but just look at all these amazing mountains around me. Like, this is pretty cool. And you're on Strava and you start to connect with other people, or at least see different paths
Options,
or heat maps come up. And you're like, how do I get there? Or what is this they're doing? Or like, well, I can go that fast. Or, like you start to kind of create these curiosities. And you're like, well, if I go there, I'll probably need maybe a watch to tell me where I'm at or how far I am. Or maybe I need a pack to haul stuff in. Or, you just kind of go down that rabbit hole. I already had Hokas, so that was no brainer. So Bryce put me in Hokas from the get-go. They were like the big ones with bumpers, from the beginning. But that was just really how it started, like just getting curious about where I lived. And, now it's no secret to anybody how much I love Ogden and what a secret gem it is to be there and to have access, like quick access to miles, hundreds of miles of trails, mountain trails, anything you'd ask for. So that's
the
where it all
very
started.
location you're talking about. We have a love affair with it. I mean, the mountains are gorgeous. It's rugged, the lighting, the tree, there's so much there. You described the curiosity, and, thank goodness that treadmill blew up. I mean, what a great blessing.
I know.
Glad no one was hurt other than the treadmill.
Yeah.
But what a great thing to just find where you're at and to kind of embed yourself into it. What was going on internally? So there was this curiosity, but the stoke was there. So talk about that, this internal feeling. Was the runner's high? I mean, is that what you would describe it as? I mean,
Sure.
What would you say was there inside?
I think it was this immense freedom, and there was a sense of like, wow, I'm out here in the wilderness, even though you're a half a mile away from everything.
Yeah, there's Rainbow
Ogden.
Gardens.
The freeway kind of like, or a main road. And, but there was this like simplicity of feeling, wow, I'm out here. This kind of feels crazy. Like this is something out of the ordinary, and crazy, not in a bad way, but like, wow, I am actually doing something that I feared, and now I'm okay with it. And that's a sweet satisfaction. So definitely a runner's high per se, but as far as the trail running part, I couldn't believe how much better it felt on my body, and how just kind of chill it was. Like you didn't have to worry about a per mile pace. You didn't have to worry about, you worry about other things, but you know how to wreck cars or things like that. It was more just a simplicity with just being out there. And, I grew up in a big city, and I didn't really have a lot in nature. In South Carolina, you just go from AC to AC. You don't really do anything outside. So this was a whole new genre for me. And it was like a lift off, really.
Was it something that at that stage in life, you talked about being, maybe you're a young mom, you know, the independence or freedom you described, was that part of it? Is just, I need to just let the kids be for a minute and, you know they're taken care of, but just get out for me.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think running for me always has been like that. Even if it was on a treadmill or a road, it was like, okay, this is me time. And I knew already how much better I would feel by just even getting in a little 3-mile run.
Yeah.
Like you just feel good and everything turns back on, all the endorphins, all of the important things.
Did you ever struggle with having a desire to get out the door?
That's a good question. There's always those days that come up, but no, this is so cheesy. Like I love getting out there. Some people ask me that too. Like, well, what motivates you? I'm like, I don't know. I just really like running. Like I love knowing that it's good.
I sensed that's how you were going to answer. Like
Okay.
I can feel the positiveness of how much you love it, you know,
Yeah.
and how much it is ingrained in who you are as a person now, which I think is really, really pretty awesome. As I'm sitting here listening to the story of you beginning to start to run in 2013, and I look at where you're at now, 13 years later or so, have you looked back at your progression, and has it blown you away? Like I went from a 1.5 mile run on Birdsong, and now I'm running thousands of miles a year.
That's crazy.
Have you been able to digest that?
I don't know. I don't know if I think of it like that. Like I love stats and numbers and I get into that like with my clients and personally, like I enjoy that element of it.
Yeah.
But as far as in looking back, no, because there's always the next day.
Yeah.
So even with this project this year, I think that's been a hard thing too, because you've moved on from race to race to race that I haven't had enough time to reflect. And that's a huge part of what I'm trying to do now is just reflect and
While
remember,
you're running or after
like
the fact?
after. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you always like, because I don't know about for you guys, but as soon as you get home, it's like, mom, 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 mom,
Yeah,
mom.
yeah.
And so you're not like, oh yes. And the flowers were so pretty. So like, I really like bring up Strava again. Like for me, that has been such a vital part of my, like a journal, like it's my journaling.
Yeah.
And my kiddo was actually kind of giving me a hard time the other day because he's a 13-year-old new Strava guy and he's all into the being silly about the things and
Yeah.
the whatever. And like quickly kudos everybody on his list. And I'm like, dude, you gotta like chill out a little bit. You can't be like the first kudo guy. And you just gotta like, wait a minute, right? Like,
Here we go.
just
Kudos, Coach
yeah,
Tara.
just
I
relax.
like
just
this.
Give it an hour.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just like let it be for a second.
Turn off those notifications, baby.
Yeah, I'm like don't set that up for everybody.
This is
just
so
let
good.
that be. But and so I was
I
like,
can't wait to like her first on her next.
please do.
First.
We'll do that. Mutually.
We're
But
stalkers.
no, the same thing. Like so,
funny.
like for me, like I'll label my runs right where I was because I use that like cataloging. So if I'm like, oh gosh, like so, I wonder how I was doing on starting 3 years ago. I can roll that up and be like,
Yeah.
okay, wow, that was a lot faster. And so sometimes my reflections coming back to that happen on more of a spot basis instead of like,
Yeah.
oh wow, that was so good, or
Where does your mind go when you're on the trail?
just regular stuff like what's for dinner.
Okay. You're
Yeah.
thinking about the kids,
Yeah,
schoolwork,
like okay, how do I resolve
whatever.
this issue, or oh, don't fall. Just little things like, oh wow, maybe I need a what's it called, like a PT appointment, or
I'm
just-
feeling that. Yeah.
yeah,
The
or
to-do lists.
and
Yeah.
so, and I really enjoy running alone as much as I do running with friends. And I think there's a time and a place for both. And yeah, there's good in both of that.
So you're super present in your mind when you're running, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or music. Like I am a music listener, so I apologize if I haven't seen you guys out because I've been listening. I tune in to not be dangerous, but yeah, I love music and that's a big part of me personally. And so I have like nothing particular on, just all music, and I just, lose myself.
Yeah.
in that
So
sometimes.
should I feel guilt as a mountain biker when I startle a runner? Because I think that happens all the time. And I feel bad that I startle them.
No.
Coach us, Tara.
Yeah. What do we
How do
gotta-
we approach the runner from behind?
Or-
We're 10
or-
miles from a car, a woman.
Right.
No, this is like a thing,
It's
right?
no, it's a good question.
I get this wrong all of the time.
Yeah, because it's even runners who will startle sometimes too, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I have my music down enough, so I usually hear. I think bells are funny, right? Because I feel bad for the bikers who have to wear bells, because that's got to be annoying.
Yeah.
But it is helpful. But yeah, I don't mind even a little. Like, you're not gonna have like a little ding ding bell to
Yeah.
do that, but that's cool because then
Okay.
I'll hear that. I run with my dog.
Okay.
And so he
He
usually,
usually perks
hears,
up before.
He'll be like, especially Sardine. He's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he lets me know, which is cool. But that's fine. I'm usually, this is not like patting myself on the back, but because I have a dog, I'm usually hyper aware because I want him to be safe too. So
Yeah.
I'll make sure that we're like moving and staying out of the way, because it's easier for me to haul him off than for you guys to piggyback over. And so, there's a give and take. I do get frustrated. Like, gosh, East Fork was nasty yesterday. Like, people were just motoring. I like to have an eye connection and be like, hey, yeah, good. Yeah, we're good. And, a little bit of that little chit chat back and forth
Yeah.
makes the run bike thing not awkward, because
Yeah.
most runners are fine just stepping off.
Yeah.
But if a biker is just coming in without even a regard,
Yeah.
then we'll kind of stand our ground,
Uh-huh.
put our elbows a little bigger. So anyway, that's a side note.
Okay.
Tara doesn't know this, but I actually have been on a climb before on my mountain bike where
Oh gosh.
I
She passed you?
Yeah. Yeah.
What? When?
Yeah. And then I got out of the way because she caught me again. I'm like, okay, like
Wait, where?
it's happened.
On what?
It's happened a couple times actually. You're
Like,
fast
it's on the shoreline?
You're fast and strong. Like this is I'm being serious. This
Well.
is legit.
You can say something next time.
There's super loose places that I've encountered you in, and on a mountain bike, super loose, uphill's tough.
Yeah.
Right? Grind, spin out, whatever. Yeah, I mean, you're a goat. You get after it. It's impressive.
Yes.
It's really impressive. I want to go back though, because I'm intrigued to know
Yes.
just when you went from Birdsong, cool 5 to 6 miles to, hey, I wonder if I can run for 40 hours. Like,
Yeah. Well,
how do you bridge the gap there?
so Bryce was doing those by then. He was doing 50 milers, 100 milers, and I was starting to be ingrained more in the community and learn about these kind of things. And I paced him, or I crewed him, which means that at each, so 100 milers, there's usually an aid station about, let's say, 4 to 11 miles every 4 to 11 miles. And so I was that person. I was there every time that it was allowed, where I would fill him up with snacks, waters, shoes, that kind of thing, send him on his way. And I was there, it was at the Bear, and I fell hard, hook, line, and sinker. It was just, what is this? Look at all these people. A little bit of, oh, well, I can do that. Or, like maybe if you just think of it like from aid station to aid station, like that could be really fun. Look how fun. Everyone's having so much fun, but they're crying.
Well, that's the thing. I've always
Why?
understood that these 100-milers, the aid stations are carnage,
Can be.
but you saw it differently. Like,
It's both.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on the person.
yeah,
But it's also like these aid stations at some of these races are just stacked. Like we had one at the Bear last weekend where my buddy Trevor Fuchs created a whole pizzeria, and he had like homemade pies there for whoever wanted them. And, it was
Yeah.
this big thing, and they had like
So
the
cool.
tablecloth. So it can be a little of everything. And I was like, this looks fun. And as I was learning how much I loved being in the mountains, I'm like, if I have a chunk of time dedicated where my kids are good and taken care of, and I can be out in the mountains for this amount of time, I want to do that. Let's see how I can do that. I don't know how I can do that, but that would be really fun. So that was, pretty simple with that.
Yeah.
Just really wanted to try it.
So cool. There's something about that experience, and it's hard to describe to people. When I often get asked about endurance mountain bike races or what is it about being out there, there's some connectedness that is going on with nature that is hard to describe unless you've done it. How would you describe that for you?
I mean, the first word that comes every time is just this freedom. Like even this morning, we got out, my dog and I, we got out early with a bunch of friends to celebrate another friend's birthday. And, you know, it's dark, went up a mountain. It was amazing. Some of the northern lights were fading. I mean, it was just incredible to put yourself in that scenario where I could have just slept in like I do most other days these
Yeah.
days. And that would have been fine too. But there's the curiosity, like what is going to be out there today?
Yeah.
What am I going to see? Like, I love the photography element of it too. Like, what am I going to be able to capture? What can I share with my family? Or that's even how it started out with Instagram for me, was having a page where I could put things that I saw out on my run. And my mom was starting to get sick at the time, and I could share those things with her. And she was like, this is nuts. And, but this is cool. And just taking people to places that they may not get to go to. And I'm there.
Yeah. So cool. There's so much here that I want to dive into with you, because there's so much that goes on with Strava. There's so much that goes on with Instagram that frankly suck, you know, in a lot of ways. And yet when I watch yours and I see what you're doing, that's what I love about it too. That I mean, in a lot of ways, Instagram and social media, it's this kind of false sense of connection. And yet you're disconnecting from the world as you go out and run and have freedom and go up mountains and do all these things. But you're bringing it back. You're capturing it. You're the first person I've heard Strava is their journal, but that's how I feel about it too.
Yeah.
I was riding yesterday with a good friend, Old Snow Basin Road, and I wanted to capture the moment of the leaves and the colors and the day, the connection that I had with him. And so I did it. It wasn't like, here's my time and miles and that. Do you know what I mean?
Yep,
all this
totally.
stuff. So I love what you're describing of how you are out and enjoying it, but you're capturing and bringing it back to share. So say more about that piece, because it went from, this is something I love to go do, to capturing it. And that's now become part of what you're doing. I mean, it's part of your running persona now.
Yeah, I love that part of it. It's because you can see something different every time you're out there, and that bodes well for me. That makes me want to get up and go check stuff out and see what's next.
Yeah.
And whether it's a race or an experience or having that memory, because wow, those memories fade. Like, it's even hard to remember all the things that have happened this summer, but I really rely on the picture part of that. And I'm such a visual person anyway, in anything regarding my life. I can't follow a recipe on paper. I have to see it. Someone actually doing that.
Interesting.
So I love it. And so that just suits me. That's just kind of a me thing, like my personality. So I really rely on those photos.
Do you feel an obligation to post on Instagram?
Sometimes I try to get out of that feeling and ignore it, but there's different ebbs and flows to how Instagram is presenting itself to where you feel like you do. Like, I appreciate the companies that I work with who are pretty easygoing about that. And I choose to work with folks that don't ask me to do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes it's part of the deal, and that's fine. But I want to share things with people that really help them, that I'm not asked to do. Like, don't do so many posts a month and have you standing there holding something, or that's just not, it's just not my thing. So,
you do it the right way. I mean, 25,000 followers. I don't know if that's the number today on Instagram or whatever those numbers are, but I love the content because it's not just trying to look a certain way. It's going places and doing things. It's becoming someone. When did that become part of your story in terms of you running, now wanting to go longer? And how did that dovetail into sponsorship? And this is now become, it's more than just, I'm getting out on a morning, for my run. It became something elevated.
I mean, gosh, that's a great question. I feel like I need to think more about these things deeply. I don't know. I'm very grateful. I know it's a it's a great position to be in, and I'm very proud of these groups I work with who have come through for me huge this year with this project. And they're all groups mainly that I've worked with for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And they're a big part of my evolution too, as much as they have grown as companies. So that's been a fun journey together. And I mean, a couple of groups are a little newer, which that's always fun because you get to go through the growing pains, the pros and cons, and learn more about what they have going on. But I try to take all that part of it separately because, I mean, that could all go away tomorrow. It's not a real thing. So the real things are the actual run itself and being out there, like getting to share these things with my kids and my husband, my family. Like that's real. The other things are amazing and welcomed and great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could be the next person tomorrow, or it could be somebody else.
So it was never a goal. It wasn't a goal to like, if
was
I keep
never a goal.
running and really, doing all these crazy things that I'm going to land a sponsor someday.
No, when I jumped in on Instagram, it was so long ago. Like there wasn't even the word influencer. Like that wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't see myself as that, but I would like to influence, but not.
For the right reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I love. I mean, to be honest, that's what part of the reason why when K-Day, when he was like, hey, we need to do this. I'm like, absolutely. This is someone who's doing influencing right? When we think about Brain Stoke and the 5 S's, I don't know that there's a better person to talk about the 5 S's than you, just because you're doing it as a lifestyle. And that's what's missing in the world today is that people, you're talking about getting out and before the sun. And I mean, I believe God gave us all the ways to get high naturally, and you're doing it right. So I think it's cool. I mean, what a cool thing that you've attracted organizations who are like, this is the woman, to do it the right way, influencing the right way about lifestyle.
Thanks.
It's awesome.
One toenail at a time.
That's right.
Got to donate something.
Got to donate it.
That is part of the struggle. So go back to those years where the length starts to come on.
Oh, yeah,
what was
yeah,
the
yeah.
first? Was it like, hey, I want to do a marathon, or was it?
I've never run a marathon. I've never run a marathon.
You went from Birdsong to the Bear Without.
Birdsong to Bear. That's my book title.
Says so much.
Yeah.
Bird to bear.
So, yeah, I kind of, yeah. I mean, I just knew that I wanted to go for it and try. I had tried a couple other like 50Ks and 50 milers, which were fun, but everyone was going so fast. I was like, why are they going so fast? Like they have a long way to go. Like that wasn't my thing. And I knew just again from Bryce that that's not the whole objective of 100 milers, which again, I felt that worked great for me, that it was a mirage of different techniques, whether it was hiking, shuffling, walking, crying, running, stopping, sitting, like all those things, they sound great. And I knew I could do that. And yeah, I didn't know how fast I could do that in, but I knew that I could probably do that.
What is your relationship with suffering like?
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't mind it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think when you're in a pool, going back and forth like a gerbil on a wheel for years, I think I just learned how to get in my head and be, like you said earlier, like be present. Like I learned I wasn't afraid of being alone with my thoughts.
Yeah.
And being there, which isn't necessarily suffering, but that's a big thing for people. A lot of people I know don't feel comfortable running by themselves, and it's not a safety thing. It's just that they're not good with being in their own head.
Yeah.
For that long or short periods.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. But as far as like suffering, I mean, that's I don't know, that's hard for everybody. But I think that there's a good balance, and you show up and you put in the work and you learn what that feels like. You can not be shy about it and know that it comes and goes.
Yeah.
And it's not permanent.
Yeah. Yeah. Something about being prepared and putting in the work. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we've experienced that, and I think we can relate. well, no, I can't relate to you,
No,
but
no,
on
no.
a small scale, I think I understand. I mean, the suffering can be managed when you're prepared and you prepare yourself, every morning.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to know and get to a point where the suffering doesn't go on forever. And injury wise and things that do come up, that's when it gets sketchy because you don't know.
Yeah.
That's when you're like, oh no. But like the other things like toenails, that's hard, but it doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
And you just figure it out. You can go.
It's cool to know your roots were tied to the pool. I didn't grow up swimming, but I've stared at that lane, for hours and hours training for Ironman, years ago. Love triathlon, love that. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That in those long sessions that you have to get to the place where you can be in your own head. When you're in your own head, what's the self-talk? What are you talking about, thinking about? What are you doing?
I am the biggest nerd about optimism. I'm a pretty optimistic, I'm a pretty light-hearted person, and I think that comes easy to me to be like, what's the word? Self-motivated, but like intrinsically, how do you say that? But like I can just do that, whether that was in my professional life before. Like I'm always looking for the silver lining and the what's next, and sometimes that helps me. Sometimes it's hard, but it's hard for my kids probably. They probably hate it. or Bryce too. He probably hates that. But no, I just, and through the struggles that my mom had with her disease, like she was just a happy, wonderful person always. And I mean, we had a rough childhood. Like, my dad left when we were young and she had to make it on her own. Just one of those stories again. And so I saw her fight and be gritty and figure things out. And, winters without heat sometimes, or, open the oven with it on so it'll heat our house, or just, I learned how to still see the good in the bad, and she made it, and she always created that environment for my brothers and I think that that's a testament to who I am.
Yeah.
And she had this insatiable laugh where it was like a cackle, and as a teenager it just embarrassed me. Like I am just like, oh my gosh, like please don't. And you could hear it anywhere you were, like the echoing cackle. And I mean, I don't think I'd cackle like that, but the laugh is good to do. So back to your question, like I think that that's just part of who I am.
Yeah.
Which is critical, right? To do what you're doing, to be able to be in your own head and to know what to do when you're there, the positive self-talk, to stay in the right headspace. I mean, when you sit and talk to athletes who do it well, they're incredible at this. They have next level mental game. Talk a little bit more about, you connected your mom to this whole story, and the 4 races this year and the cause. Bring that relationship into the dialogue for us and talk more about that.
Yeah. So when I got into the Hard Rock, when I was chosen in the Hard Rock lottery, that was the beginning of December last year. And I was so injured. I was just hiking on the shoreline by the green bench, and got the call. I got the first call was that Bryce had gotten selected to be in Hard Rock too. And he had like an 11-year journey to get in. So that was a huge deal. And standing there, it was like snowing. It was just one of those days, and probably one of the last time it snowed in December. And then we were both so stoked and just hung the phone up and kept walking. And then not 2 minutes later, my phone blew up because everybody listens to the lottery draw. Do you guys listen to it?
No,
Okay,
I'm not
well,
familiar with
anyway.
Hear your name called though. Like describe it, because
and I purposely was out there doing that because I didn't want to be sitting around the computer like biting my nails off. And so it came through and like literally my phone blew up and like texts and just calls, and I just sat there and I just started crying. And I don't know if you guys know Lance Bailey. I'm sure you guys know Lance, right?
Yep.
And he happened to be out there on his fat bike, and he came around the corner, and I'm standing like shaking, crying. He's like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" Like he's one of my son's coaches, and so we know him from that. And he's like, "Are you all right? Like, what's wrong? Are you okay?" And he's like, so I was like, "I just got into Hard Rock." And he's like, "Cool." He probably had no idea what I was talking about, but it was a really sweet moment. And so that just started the amazing thinking about maybe, okay, well, I'm doing hard rock and that's enough. Like any year just doing hard rock alone is fantastic. And went to a Christmas party a couple weeks after with a bunch of trail runners and get a bunch of trail runners in the room. And they're like, why don't you do the Rocky Mountain Slam? And you've already done a couple of the options in there. You know what it's like. And, just started spinning the wheels, and bad influences in that room made me start thinking about it more. And I would have needed to decide on those races quick because things fill up, and you guys know how that goes. Like you hurry and get on it for your next season.
Yeah.
And and I kid you not, I was out on a run because things happen when you're out on a run, and just kind of in my head, and same thing, probably shoreline. I think it was like in between 27th and like the Indian Trail connection there. And it's all dark, dreary scrub oak at that time of year. And out of nowhere, this little bluebird, this little blue finch, because there's finches that fly all around there, just went and landed on like one of the branches. I'm like, what in the world? Like who cued the bluebird? Like where did that come from? And for me, in my life, so growing up in South Carolina, there's blue jays everywhere. And my mom, just being the character she was, she would like pretend they were talking to her and like talk back, and they would yap back and forth because they're jays. And again, so annoyed, so embarrassed always. And so that was the thing. And so this bluebird just landed there, and I was like, huh, that's funny. And kept going and kept thinking about that scenario, and bird was just like flying along with me. I'm like, this is really weird, guys. Like, what's going on here? And so I started thinking, okay, this Rocky Mountain Slam, that would be really fun. Like, how would I make this not just about racing? Like, what could motivate me a little bit more? And I've never really used my platform to share much about her or her disease. She died from ALS in 2016. And it was a quick battle. She was probably late diagnosed, but she only really lived with it for about a year and a half, if that. Again, probably had it a little bit longer. But that was a quick thing, and it was horrible, ridiculous, stupidest disease out there. Just rips your heart out. There's nothing you can do. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I wonder if this might be the time where I finally take some action. Because I've kind of sat with my hands, sat on my hands and not really done much about it. But if I could make a difference, and maybe I could do a fundraiser, maybe I could get some companies involved. Just kind of brainstorming through all of that. And so that's what I did. And finishing the Bear 100 2 weeks ago, at that point, we raised over $16,000 for the ALS Association, which was, to me, really the storyline of the summer. Wasn't the finishing the races, which that's a huge part of it, and I had to do it. But I don't know where that 16K came from, except for the goodness of the hearts of this running community and a lot of the companies I work with. It was an honor to feel that and to have that go into an organization that can help people who are living with ALS and potentially dealing with it down the road. Because there's no cure. There's not really any real headway there. They have drugs on the market every so often that maybe help slow the flow, but there's nothing really out there. And it's something that's not talked about a lot because it's hard to talk about.
Yeah.
Say more about ALS.
So ALS.
I mean, I loved your description.
Yeah.
That this sucks.
It's, and I'm not a doctor for sure. And I'm not going to say this 100% correctly, so I'm sorry for those of you out there who might know more than me about this, but it basically robs your brain connecting with your neurons at any particular part in your body. And then your brain, since it's not connecting, let's say with your hand. So once it's like, okay, I used to talk to, that sounds funny, I'm going to talk to my hand, right? That's a catchphrase from a long time. So you can't talk to your hand. And so then it just shuts it off immediately. It's like, okay, well, I used to talk to this part of my body, and okay, the transmission is quieter and quieter. Oh, there's no more okay, so we're just not going to talk to it. We're going to the brain is going to put the effort into other parts of the body. Oh, and now we're losing contact. Think about being out in space, like, oh, we're losing contact now with this satellite. So we're just gonna, well, not a lot there. We're just gonna let it go and focus on more parts. And that's kind of how it goes. And it's a lot more complicated than that, but hopefully that helps understand it a little bit. So in a lot of ways it manifests itself in people, just regular people, you and I will start maybe tripping or having some disconnect with regular motor functions that you could maybe write off, like, because I fall all the time, and do I think about that connection? Oh, yeah, you bet I do. That's a thing. But so little things like that, even like hand-related issues, like there's not a lot of linear science between, I'm going to forget the word, like when you get cold all the time, like Raynaud's, right? Because that's a thing. You're actually losing sensory, fill in the word if you'd like, but you're losing function in your hands and your feet when it's really cold out or warm out. So there's so many different things they can't linearly connect to ALS, but it's in the same family as Parkinson's, strangely, also MS. So there's some connections there, but not really. But it's on the shelf with those other diseases that they can't find things about.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. So with my mom, and she was an active, the cutest grandma, like super wonderful, living in Colorado. And she would do like her water aerobics at the gym with her lady friends all the time, or just go on walks. And she was like a teacher aide at a kindergarten and just doing her thing, like mid-60s and loving life. And she and her husband had a good thing going. And it was just, she felt that she had maybe a neck thing happening, like like maybe she would need a neck fusion down the road. She just had some kinks in her neck where she couldn't like turn all the way, or it was very subtle and nobody could define it. And then lo and behold, it was defined. And then it was like, oh my, you have got to be kidding me. Like, how could this wonderful human, just be robbed, like just out of the blue? And that's what happens. I mean, you guys know of Coach Thompson here in Ogden. Same.
Yep.
Right? And he's been living with ALS now, I think, 6 years. And there's 2 variants, supposedly. There's a quick version and then a longer version. And I don't know what you would say is better, because it just is what it is.
Yeah, brittle.
There's time involved with one versus not. And you don't know really what you are in until you're in it.
You described that it was defined. Will you define that? Just what was it that, I mean, the testing and the assessment of it all is an interesting thing to know. How do they assess for it when there is so many symptoms could be, counted as other things that are going on?
That's a great question. And I honestly don't know. I don't know. And I'm really good at compartmentalizing. I may not have ever decided to look into it. I don't know.
That's okay.
Yeah, I don't know that answer. I just know that she got a lot of no's until finally somebody decided to dig deeper. And that happens not to get into like the medical
It's absolutely
world,
what
but,
happened,
right? Like,
especially in
happens.
LS.
Like,
People,
if you're not in a certain compartment with these things, then, oh, well, we'll move you on to the next. Oh, well, you don't fit these. And it just keeps going. And so there's probably like half a year, 8-10 months, where she was trying to find out just
what it was.
Why can't I? Yeah. What's wrong with my neck? So.
The assessment process, is challenging. So we don't have to necessarily dive further into that for her. But for those who, ALS is brutal for a lot of those reasons, because there isn't one specific criteria per se. There's a lot of side effects. Did the neck pain go on for a long time for her? You said 8 to 10 months before she kind of found out, and was it defined ALS?
Yeah, so that never went away. Like that was the trigger and stayed, right?
Wow.
So that everything just built up upon that.
Yeah. What so when she started to get sick, you talked about this run that day, the Bluebird. Was this where it kind of came together, this idea of, can I raise money for this cause? even though she had been gone for a number of
Yeah,
years.
already.
Yeah.
Yeah, since 2016. It did. And I went home and immediately reached out to the ALS Association and said, hey, you don't know me. And this sounds a little crazy, but this is what I want to do. Like, what do you think? Is this something that people do? I've never really, I'm not kind of an activist type person to do something like this. And I wanted to have an option where people paid directly to an organization and not like I didn't want to
Not through
deal
you.
with it
Right.
or sit
Yeah.
on anything or whatever. And they have been fantastic. They've been amazing.
They probably love that.
Yeah, they
Simple.
didn't mind, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a win-win for both of us.
Heck yeah.
And so that's been really, really good.
What's your mom's name?
Diane,
Diane.
thanks for asking.
Yeah, you bet.
So you dive into the races, you say, I'm going to take this on. Was part of the cause up front, I'm going to do the 4. So the slam was it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was connectedness of the 4 races, completing them. I'm going to raise money for the ALS cause. So Preston asked this earlier, and this is a question that I had. Was there pressure to complete it all because of the cause?
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I can't imagine that, actually. Probably a little stressful even.
Yeah.
Lead up.
In the beginning, there were a couple times I won't forget just sitting down on a fallen tree with the same friend Sarah at my first race, which I love and know and knew I could finish. But I think the enormity of it was like, oh, do I even want to put my body through this? Can I? But do I want to? Like,
Yeah.
and who would I let down, or who's already donated that I would feel bad, and like there's all of that too. And I mean, that's just being real about it, right? Like
Yeah.
and then I don't want to be in a position to feel like I have to because of those feelings. I really wanted to just do that. And it took, I think, getting past the first one to know, okay, we've got this, because Hard Rock was always the number one goal. Like that was the whole thing. And I think that getting past that one is always like, I think that if I can finish this one, I think we'll be good. Or I think finishing that one was okay. This is more realistic. We can make this work.
Yeah.
It seems like in the ultra running world, like a DNF is respectable. Whereas maybe in other races or shorter races, maybe it's not as, I don't know. I don't know what I'm
stings.
getting at, but
Yeah.
like, I assume in some of your prior hundreds, you've DNF'd and you've been okay with it. But this one was going to be different.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I've only DNF'd twice.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm just such a cheese ball. I just really love being out there.
So you're okay.
And the first time I had taken a fall maybe a month before in the same race, this bighorn. I didn't know I had a broken femur.
Oh my gosh.
And so that was one. So it wasn't a contusion. It was actually, it's a little more. So sorry, that's maybe too much information there, but that
not
was
at
why
all.
it hurt so bad.
This is the mind of
Yeah.
Tara.
Oh,
Like,
She needed
gosh.
traction,
Broken
but she
femur.
kept running.
It hurt
Kinda
really
shouldn't
bad. Like I kept going to like that next aid station, that 33 mile, and people were passing like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, am I okay? Like, do I look weird? I must have been like crawling." So that was a thing. And then another time, I think this was one during COVID. I was just like, for whatever reason, I was like, I think I'd rather go eat a giant like enchilada instead of finishing this race. And so Bryce and I both DNF'd at the Bear and went and had this great like El Toro Viejo. You guys,
Oh,
you can't-
man.
you start thinking about
oh,
that.
that's
you
trouble.
it's like, oh man, I'm done. So, but I mean, I think there's one or two others in there too. But no, like, I like the thing.
Yeah.
You're
And
okay to suffer. We've learned that.
I really
Yeah.
enjoy it, and
Yeah.
it's crazy. Again, my poor kids. Like, it's try to go easy on them.
Try to go easy. This mom
Sorry,
can
guys.
suffer. Like homework? Are you serious? We're in 400 milers. Like We should have your boys on. Talk about coping with mom's
Right?
problem.
No, they
Yeah.
follow you. I know one follows. So
Oh, man.
yeah, well, shout out to Ricky.
Nice. Talk about the hardest moment in the 4. Was there one just point in all of it where, I mean, because you've got this massive goal, you're raising money, there's an expectation that's there, but ultra running is legit hard. Like there's your health, right? There's a point in all of it where it's like you can go too far and you're going to deal with the ramifications of that for maybe not just, a toenail pops off. We're talking about long-term stuff.
Yeah, I mentioned I was injured when I got the call about Hard Rock. And I've had some crazy things go on with my pes azernine, like all that in there on your medial knee. And I think I had a Baker's cyst that popped and it like did something weird to that area. And I thought for sure I was going to need knee surgery in the off season. I also learned in the off season last year that I had, let's see if I remember how to say this, Haglund's deformity. Did I say that right? That's when your ankle bone sticks out and pulls on your Achilles and scrapes your Achilles.
For our listeners who don't know what the last 3 injuries she's described are, you have to go psycho mileage to even get these kinds of injuries. They're new to all of us.
Yeah.
I like it.
And I was told on that too, I needed to have surgery to repair that. And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, but that was why my Achilles was hurting so bad. I always want to make sure I'm not doing something that's going to make it worse. But if I can kind of figure out how to maneuver through it and carefully make sure I'm fine, right? Because I love running. And so I don't want to hurt myself worse. Like, who wants to do that? So I'm not like sadistic, even though maybe it sounds like it. Like I'm reasonable, I guess.
I have morals.
I have
Jeez.
standards and boundaries. Gosh, guys. But no, so those were all real things and just friends I would run with all winter. And wintertime running in Utah doesn't help on those injuries either.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't even know. I don't really even know if I'm going to be able to pull this off. But so I forgot the question we were looking at, but
Yeah.
The hardest moment.
Hardest moment in the 4.
So those were all hard moments. And I think too, to be honest, like every race when you're in it and you're doing it is the hard moment. And then you let that go and then you get into your next one. I think there were some unexpected hard moments, and definitely racing and the physicality were all extremely hard moments, all of them. Like there were a couple times at Hard Rock where, and I'm not shy about steep things or scrambling or all that. I love that. But there were a couple spots I'm like, has anybody else been up here? And do you see what I see? Like the mom inside me, I'm like, this is pretty dangerous, guys. Like I'm good, but I saw some other folks back there. Like, is this safe? Like, have you been out here to check this lately? It might be different from last year, but there's a lot of that. But for me, I think one of the things that really took me off guard was the mental funk in between Wasatch and the Bear, and just really that was really stressful. And apologies to my family again for that couple weeks. That was hard to wrap my head around going one more time. It was just hard to get into that zone because having done Bear so many times, I knew what that would be like. And I knew way too well what that would be like. And maybe I would just want to stop and go have another,
burrito,
plate of fajitas, something. So that was a lot. And I had to just really not focus on that. I had to focus a lot on my mom. I had to focus a lot on the finish line. Those finish line mental pictures for me, I'm a sucker for. I can go there and get pulled out of a lot. And that helped, but it was really hard. Really, really hard.
I was going to ask, and you kind of talked about it right there, but how often did you think about that Blue Jay over this past year?
A lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And different other things that would come up. And I purposely did that too, not to torture myself, but just like, if I'm going to do this, like, let's bring it all in. Like, let's let all of this hit me. Let's remember all of this. Like, talking to my brothers about it too, because this is their story also. And, you know, just making sure that this is good and that we're respecting her
Yeah.
and not like exploiting, right? But that
Yeah.
it's just a thing to kind of start remembering
Yeah.
and having the opportunity to raise the money.
I think it's such a cool way to honor, you know, what she meant to you, you know, the whole experience. I think it's awesome when you get in those moments or reflect back on those moments of being in the race, in the moment. Was it picturing the finish line, like you at the finish line? Was it her at the finish line? How are you channeling her into that?
Yeah,
Or was
I
it
mean,
just
'cause
completing the project, almost like a gift to her?
a gift to her, totally. And wow, that I'm gonna try not to choke up about this. I mentioned to you guys earlier, I was mic'd for a project that we have coming in the future, and I'd forgot the mic was on as I was talking to my husband a couple times at the finish, like complaining about how bad it sucked or how my feet were literally falling apart, like they're actually falling apart, like really are, just things like that. And then I don't know, I like out of nowhere, really, I was coming up the finish. It's kind of the chute is more like a street, so it's like a street you're coming up. And I just remember hearing myself say like, "Wow, we did it, Mom," and because she is there with me. Like, I know that. And like, somebody asked me the other day too, like, oh, well, do you go like visit her grave and see that a lot in this? And I'm like, I actually don't. Like, I don't feel like I need to, even though it's nice and it's a beautiful place. But I feel her with me a lot in funny ways, whether it's picking up heart rocks on the trail or you know, something random will pop into my head or, you know, the bluebird or something. Or if I hear somebody cackling in the background, I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, that's how it is.
I assume you can't run that certain section of shoreline ever without not thinking of your mom.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, right. And there's a
that's
lot
pretty
of
awesome.
places like that. Like
Yeah.
I was heading up to Mount Ogden on Buse when I got the call that she'd pass. Like there's like one particular giant rock that I sat down. Like there's always
Lots of
things like
spots.
on in all of our lives, right?
Yeah.
Like moments that hit us while we're out that mean
Yeah.
special things to
Yeah.
us. So yeah.
I heard a description years ago. I try to read as much as I can from endurance runners or ultra runners because I think they're some of the best minds out there. You know, they tend to not be for the sponsor deal or for the show. There's something about them in particular, but you know, this one woman who I read the description from, she was describing to listeners, readers, that she's never felt intimacy more than being out in the middle of nowhere running by herself.
Yeah.
Take me there for you. Just the moments where you're in the middle of nowhere, you're alone, and that feeling comes over you of just the high.
Yeah, like when you were just saying that, I had so many pop in my head, but I think I remember one in particular. I was racing the High Lonesome 100, which is outside of Buena Vista, Colorado, and it was like mile 56 or so. I just left my crew, got stocked up, climbed up a big hill, and there was like a downhill section. I think it's like 7 or so miles downhill, and it was just butter smooth. And it's the middle of the night at elevation, and it's crazy dark, and you know you're above tree line, but you can't see anything, and you just have the shadows of the trees and scree fields on the sides of you, which is cold, right? Because it's that cold slate.
Yep.
And you're running down, and I've done that race a couple of times too, and sometimes you don't feel so good. But this one, it was amazing. I was just running through the dark. I don't even know where I was on the planet. And I had all my wits about me and was just hauling booty down this trail and thought, this is how it is. This is how I want to be. Like, you just, again, the freedom, like you just feel free. You feel connected to where you're at. And it's just wild.
Yeah.
And yeah, that lights me up. And that could be anywhere. That could be like running down Malin's this morning. It was just like that too. It was dark, cobwebs everywhere, but
Got to quit going first. Got to quit being so fast.
I know. So yeah, just all of those things.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you captured it, because Preston and I, we get to spend a lot of time with youth. Kevin, Day does as well, who's involved with Brainstoke. And there's a segment of the population out there who is okay being alone. They're okay, I wouldn't call them loners per se, but they're not necessarily into societal, social, the same way. And I think at times, because societally it's kind of looked down upon to be alone, or if you're not overly social. And so I wanted to capture that with you, because there is a different way of connectedness to self when you're out there just alone. But it's not alone as much as you're connecting to nature, which some people may get that high from spending time with a friend, and I do too. But there's something about connectedness when it's self that's different, and I just wanted to cue into that with you to see, and you described it well. You can be in the dark alone, in the middle of nowhere, and you still feel connected.
You do. I think you gain strength from that, strength and confidence that you can't sometimes when you're out with your buddies. And I think that that's a huge thing that I've admired in my son this year, as he rides NICA biking for
Cool.
Ogden High, and he has done that. He has, I think, oh, don't cry. I've seen him do that, and he's crossed that bridge where he can go do these adventures on his own. As much as, he's got the best buddies. They are some stellar dudes. But when I can see him go out there and also do that on his own, I see that growth. And you grow as an individual, and I really do think you grow physically too, because you have to have your wits about you, and you have to do your own thing. And that way you grow separately from the group. And sometimes that's hard, like you were saying. Like, you want to be with your buddies, and you want to have not just the appearance, but you love your friends, and you want them to be a part of your day every day, and all you do. But taking that time out and connecting with yourself, I think you owe it to yourself, and that's how you grow. And then you can take that back and help your buddies to grow, and then you can grow together again.
Perfectly said.
Mic drop. I'm serious. There's something to that about you. You described two words: growth and confidence. And what do growth and confidence come from? Does it come from, being with others all the time? There's an emotional maturity of self in life when you can do you and get through whatever it is, the next phase of the mountain bike ride or the next run or whatever.
Or a ski run by yourself, like going out for a powder day safely, but on your own, and like soaking that all up for yourself. Like,
Yeah.
That's a growth right there.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Very cool.
Didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I love that, because there's this piece that people don't necessarily think about it that way. But when you return from runs where you've been alone, there is this sense of, I just did that. No one did that for me. My social circle didn't do that for me. You come back with this sense of self and confidence that it's just unique, And I think that's why I'm so attracted to learning from these ultra runners and endurance athletes, because they've spent so much time alone doing and accomplishing, and they bring that back, and there's a depth and strength that they bring to the family, to their children, to their work or whatever. They're strong humans. They're whole humans because they've gone and done those things, on their own. And there's a depth to you that's awesome. Thanks. I love hearing it. I love watching what you're doing. This is the kind of influencers that we need in the world. So well done.
Thanks.
Very cool. Freestyle. Last thing, anything you want to say to anybody about any topic?
I think one thing, yes, I appreciate all those kind words, but I also want to encourage people to be careful about putting people on pedestals, because I think what I did is pretty cool. I'm not afraid to look at it and be proud of it. but I want others to go for it too.
Yeah.
And I know, don't roll your eyes at me or say anything. I really am normal. And I like, you ask the people that live in my house, they would be like, oh my gosh, like she is so full of it. Like I am a regular human. And if I can do it, like I really am, I promise you, other people can do it. And sometimes I worry in the society we're in that we put the labels on things that put people above others enough to where it's too hard to go out and do these things, especially in ultra running. It's a big thing. Like, wow, that was so awesome. I can't believe you just did that. It's such a hard race, or you just did this hard feat, which if it was, like it totally was, and it wrecked me. Or, I have scars. I have like scars on my hands from crashing the first mile at Wasatch. That was awesome. Right above the gun range. That was so cool.
I love it.
But I really feel strongly about this. Like, I think we need to be careful about how high we put people up so that we still allow for people to go for it and fail, because I think failing is the coolest thing in the world. And even like athletes I work with too, I'm like, you have to go fail. Like I could teach you the world. I could give you everything that works for me, but you have got to be cool with failing and just going for it. Because why not go for it? Don't feel like because somebody else has accomplished it at this level or such, that doesn't mean that you can't wherever you're at, because you might not be where you think you are. And that's just, I guess, one thing I felt strongly about over these last couple of weeks as I've kind of gone through this process and had these similar conversations, is that I don't want to be the last woman to have done this for 8 more years. Like, I want people to go out there and get after it and go try it. It's so hard. It's so hard, but you can do it. Like, just try.
I think your social media that you provide and share is genuine. And I think because it's genuine, it is inspiring to others, and it gives others the thought that maybe I can do that too. So I think there's
Good.
I think there's some inspiration that you provide.
Yeah, I know there is. I mean, I've had people describe it, other women. This lady was literally destroying me, a massage therapist, not long ago. And I'm like, what are you up to? And she started describing, and she's like, she was talking about you.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, she's a Malin's runner and all over the, Bonneville shoreline. She's everywhere. And so I think you are inspiring people, and I think it's awesome. You just alluded to something that I love you finished on. I was just with, every semester I'm at Weber State talking to some grads there who are getting ready to finish. And I always talk with them about this idea of interpersonal risk. Your willingness to take risk and to put it out there and encourage others to take risk is huge. I used to have the saying in one of my offices, you'll never know how far you can go until you risk going too far. And that continues to just be something for you, taking these additional risks. So is there another phase of this, Tara?
I don't know, like,
is there a 5? Is there a 500?
Well, it's just I think the being curious part too is that, like, some people will call it risk. Some people would just say the curiosity, which I guess if you're the cat is the same thing. But yeah, I mean, I don't know yet what next year.
Maybe
has
when
in
all the
store.
toenails are back, you'll dream the next.
Yes. I mean, there's still a lot of things I want to do, and I don't feel like I'm like this is a done thing or I'm like going to walk away, but I feel good about where we're at, and I want to take a lot of time and think deeply about each of these experiences before they all go away in my head, because they just fall away. And I had great crew and pacers throughout the year who traveled a long way to help support this, and thankfully they remember a lot more than me. So those conversations are important.
Yeah, their journal entries, right, will probably be priceless someday for you. And
I can't believe and no. But no, I think that just staying real about it and knowing that it's a lot bigger than me, and it's something that I'd love for other people to jump in and do, because there were 7 other people who finished the Rocky Mountain Slam this year. I just happen to be the only female. So there's people out there doing these hard things, and yeah, you guys should do.
It's awesome. It is awesome. I think it's amazing what you're doing. I love to run. That isn't it. It's a different level.
Yeah.
It's cool. Thank you for coming.
Of course. It was
So
a lot
good.
Of fun.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Good
When you
conversation.
dream up the next phase, then we want you to come back and share it with us on Brainstoke.
Okay. We'll see what the magical shoreline throws at me
There
this
you go.
winter.
There you go.
And then
Nice.
we'll see.
Nice. The next bluebird.
Right? Mountain
Yeah,
lion. I don't
exactly.
know. Something will jump out and spark an interest.
You've had your daily dose.